What if the life you want is not waiting for a lucky break, a new job, or a miracle, but for a small decision you repeat every single day? What if the real difference between people who remain stuck and those who slowly rebuild their lives has nothing to do with talent, education, or connections, but everything to do with how they use the quiet hours when no one is watching? This is the story of a man who had almost nothing, no degree, no savings, no clear future. Only exhaustion, responsibility, and a growing fear that his life will never change. And yet, in less than 100 days, he began to rebuild everything, not through sudden motivation or dramatic success, but through a habit so small it seemed almost meaningless at first. He started waking up before sunrise. This is the story of Daniel Reed, and more importantly, it is a story about how habits change, how identity shifts, and how failure can quietly become the beginning of discipline. Daniel was 33 years old and lived in a narrow apartment above a mechanic's shop in a noisy industrial district. The room had one small window that faced a brick wall. His mattress lay directly on the floor, and a single bulb flickered from the ceiling, buzzing softly through the night. Trucks rumbled through the streets below, metal doors slammed, and engines groaned long after midnight. He worked as a night security guard at a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Every evening at 8, he began his shift. Every morning at 6, he walks home under a dull gray sky, watching the world wake up while he prepares to sleep. He was not lazy, and that was the most painful part. He walked miles every night, patrolling empty corridors, checking locks, staring at security screens for hours. He worked hard in a life that never seemed to move forward. His paycheck covered rent and basic food, and little else. There was no space for growth, no energy for learning, no momentum toward anything better. Every morning, as he passed lit windows and families eating breakfast together, he felt a quiet ache in his chest. Is this it? Is this what the rest of my life looks like? He had tried to change things. He applied for office jobs, assistant roles, anything that paid slightly better. But he had only finished high school. Most employers wanted degrees or experience he didn't have. After long nights of work, he barely had the energy to think, let alone study. He was stuck in a loop. Work, sleep, survive, repeat. The worst part wasn't poverty, it was the feeling of moving in circles. Daniel's mother lived in a rural village several hours away. Once a week, she called him. "My son," she would say gently, "are you doing well?" "I'm fine," he always replied. But one evening, her voice sounded weaker than usual. She had collapsed from exhaustion while working in the fields. The doctor said she needed rest, proper nutrition, and medicine, things Daniel could barely afford. He took the first bus to see her. The journey felt longer than it was, each mile heavy with quiet guilt. When he arrived at the small clinic, he saw her lying in a narrow bed, her hands thin and worn from years of labor. She smiled when she saw him. "I don't need much," she whispered. "I just want to see you live a better life before I'm gone." Those words stayed with him long after he left the room. That night, he stepped outside the clinic. It was still dark. The air was cold and quiet. A few farmers were already walking toward their fields, and birds had begun their early songs. Daniel checked the time. 5:02 a.m. For the first time in years, he was awake not because of work, but because he couldn't sleep. He stood there, watching the sky slowly lighten, and felt something shift inside him. It wasn't motivating, it was uncomfortable. A clear realization that his current path led nowhere. "I can't keep living like this," he said quietly into the empty morning. But wanting change and creating change are not the same. Most people decide to improve their lives in moments of emotion. Few build systems strong enough to sustain that decision. Daniel didn't know what to do yet, but on the bus ride back to the city, he noticed a man sitting across from him. The man looked calm and alert despite the early hour. He was well-dressed, reading a book and making notes in a small notebook. He recognized him, Mr. Adrian Cole, a businessman who owned several local stores. Curious, he spoke. "Why are you awake this early?" he asked. Mr. Cole smiled gently. "Because the morning belongs to those who use it." He explained that for decades he had woken up before sunrise to read, learn, exercise, and plan. Those early hours, he said, were where his life had been built. Most people spend their best energy on survival. Very few invested in growth. Daniel admitted his situation, the night shifts, the exhaustion, the feeling of being trapped. Mr. Cole listened carefully and then said something simple but powerful. If you cannot change your job immediately, change your hours. Build a life before your shift begins. 2 focused hours every day can change everything if you protect them. He wrote his number on a card and added one condition. If you try this, try it seriously. 90 days, no excuses, then come back to me. Change rarely begins with confidence. It begins with a decision followed by resistance. The next morning, Daniel set an alarm. When it rang, his entire body protested. His mind creates arguments instantly. You need sleep. You can start tomorrow. This won't matter anyway. This is the psychology of habit change. The brain resists extra effort. It prefers familiar routines, even painful ones, because they are predictable. Comfort is not always pleasant. It is simply known. Daniel sat up anyway. The first week was brutal. He felt tired, unfocused, and irritable, but he followed a simple structure Mr. Cole had suggested. 1 hour to learn a skill that could increase his income, 1 hour to strengthen his body and plan his day. He chose basic accounting and spreadsheet skills because they were practical and accessible online. At first, progress was slow. He barely understood what he was watching, but repetition builds pathways in the mind. What feels impossible on day 1 becomes simply difficult by day 20. By the 3rd week, something shifted. His body began to adjust. His mind felt clearer in the mornings. He started experiencing small wins, understanding formulas, completing exercises, noticing improvement. Small wins matter. They strengthen their identity. Instead of seeing himself as a stuck security guard, he began to see himself as someone building a new life. Identity change is the core of habit transformation. You don't sustain habits through willpower alone. You sustain them by becoming the kind of person who does them. By the end of the 2nd month, Daniel had completed several online certifications. He felt physically stronger from daily walks and short workouts. His confidence grew quietly, without announcement. He didn't tell many people. He simply continued. In the 3rd month, he applied what he learned at work. At the warehouse, he created a simple inventory tracking system using spreadsheets. It reduces errors and saves time. His supervisor noticed. "Where did you learn this?" she asked. "Early mornings," Daniel replied. Soon, management took interest. They needed someone who understood both warehouse operations and basic accounting. On day 88 of his new routine, Daniel was offered a daytime administrative position with double his salary. He didn't celebrate loudly. He simply felt relief, and something deeper than relief: understanding. The real success wasn't the job offer. It was the person he had become in those 90 days. 1 year later, Daniel's life looked different. He had moved his mother closer to the city. He worked in a stable role with room to grow. He continued waking early, not out of desperation, but out of identity. The early hours had become sacred. They were no longer a strategy. They were simply who he was. The deeper meaning of his story isn't about waking up at a specific time. It's about how habits reshape the mind and rebuild a life. Change begins with structure, not emotion. Motivation fades quickly, but systems endure. Identity follows action. He didn't wait to feel disciplined. He acted disciplined until it became natural. Small progress compounds. 2 hours a day feels minor, but over 90 days it becomes hundreds of hours, and over a year it becomes transformation. Failure creates urgency. Without the shock of his mother's condition and his own stagnant life, he might never have changed. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is often the catalyst. Environment matters. Quiet mornings removed distractions. When willpower is low, environment becomes critical. Consistency beats intensity. He didn't study for 10 hours once a week. He studied 2 hours every day. Sustainable effort wins. Daniel's story is not about perfection. He still has difficult days. He still feels tired sometimes. But he built something stronger than motivation, discipline rooted in purpose. He no longer asked, "Will my life change?" He asked, "What will I build today?" And that question changed everything. If you feel stuck, consider this. Your transformation may not require a dramatic opportunity. It may require a small window of time you protect fiercely, a habit you repeat until it becomes identity, a decision you honor even when it's inconvenient. Failure is not permanent unless you stop responding to it. Daniel's life didn't change because he waited for a better future. It changed because he built one in the quiet hours when no one was watching. The question isn't whether mornings are magical. The question is whether you will use your time with intention. Because somewhere between exhaustion and discipline, between regret and action, between who you are and who you could become, there is a small decision waiting. Repeated daily, that decision becomes a life.